Imagine an army feared across all corners of the ancient world, not just for its strategy and discipline, but for having a secret force, a true living weapon. This was the Roman legion, which had at its side the powerful Canis Pugnax, the combat dog that terrorized enemies and protected soldiers like a fierce guardian. Today, we will explore the story of this legendary animal, understand its crucial role in the Roman army's victories, and discover how it was trained to become an unbeatable tool of war. If you've ever wondered how Rome became an invincible power, the answer goes beyond swords and shields. It also includes the fierce loyalty and companionship of its combat dogs. Imagine ancient Rome, where the streets were bustling, the temples grand, and the echo of crowds resonated between marble buildings. Now picture a strong, agile dog running alongside a Roman hunter, tracking the scent of a deer hidden in the forest. This was just one of the many roles dogs played at that time. They weren't just pets, they were trusted partners, trained to hunt, guard, and in some cases even fight. In Rome, dogs held a special status. From the humblest villages to the noblest villas, these animals were part of everyday life. Early in the morning, it was common to hear their barking as they accompanied Romans in their daily tasks. But what truly set Roman dogs apart was how valued they were for their abilities. They were not merely domesticated animals, they were allies who worked side by side with their owners. Hunting dogs, for example, were an extension of the human hunter's senses. Picture a Roman noble, dressed in his ornate tunic, walking through the forest with his bow in hand. Beside him, a dog with a sharp gaze sniffing the air and precisely signaling when prey was nearby. With the support of this loyal companion, hunting was more efficient and the reward greater. Have you ever tried to understand the wars that made Rome the greatest empire in the world, but found yourself lost in so many confusing details? If so, you're not alone. Imagine finally mastering the most important details that shaped Rome, knowing the strategies of great generals like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus, and understanding how these maneuvers changed the course of history. Knowing how hard it is to find this information, I made my digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, available. You'll have access to all this in a clear and straightforward way. Understand how Rome won impossible battles, learn interesting facts you won't find anywhere else, and become an expert in Roman military history. Go to the pinned comment and get yours now, as our units are running out. But beyond hunters, dogs were also the guardians of homes and properties. When night fell and street activity diminished, dogs took on their role as watchmen. A strange noise was enough for them to perk up their ears and let out a deep growl, enough to drive away any intruder who dared to approach. These dogs knew no fear. They were ready to protect with their lives if necessary. And of course, there were companion dogs, those that accompanied families during moments of rest and fun. In villa gardens, it was common to see children running with their dogs, laughing and playing under the Roman sun. These dogs also stayed by the poets' sides, who recited their verses to the sound of murmuring fountains, and when soldiers returned from exhausting journeys, they were welcomed by their loyal, four-legged friends, who seemed to understand every sigh of fatigue. But the most fascinating role of Roman dogs was on the battlefield. Amid the clatter of armor, the shouted commands of the officers, and the sound of trumpets, there they were, the war dogs. Trained to advance alongside soldiers, they faced danger with a courage that impressed even the bravest legionaries. Imagine the impact of a Roman army, not only of men with shields and swords, but also accompanied by fierce and obedient dogs, ready to defend the legion and attack any threat. These dogs not only participated in battles, but also played essential roles in the camps. After a day of marching, when the legionaries gathered around the fire to share stories and simple meals, the dogs remained alert, sniffing the air and listening to every movement. They protected the soldiers as they rested, ensuring the night was peaceful. One of the stories told was about a group of Roman soldiers who, lost after an ambush in a dark forest, was saved by a dog who, with his unfailing sense of smell, found the way back to the camp. These moments reinforced the importance and trust that the Romans had in their dogs. They were not just part of the army, they were an extension of the Roman family and spirit. With all this, it's easy to understand why dogs were so important in ancient Rome. They were skilled hunters, loyal guardians, affectionate companions, and brave warriors. At the end of the day, whether on a battlefield or resting by a campfire, these dogs were the embodiment of loyalty and companionship, treated as true heroes in a world of conquests and glory. Before we continue and discuss the origin of this powerful beast, Be sure to remember the name and image of this channel, so you can always return to this reliable source on Roman history. Now make sure you've subscribed, because here you'll find thoroughly researched and presented facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history, in vibrant and imposing ancient Rome, where the echoes of soldiers' sandals resonated on stone streets and the air was always filled with the aroma of spices and the sound of crowds. There was a four-legged figure that commanded respect and admiration, the Canis Pugnax. This was not an ordinary dog one might find playing carefree in the villages or alleys of Rome. The Canis Pugnax was a masterpiece, the result of careful selection and strategic breeding that created a true canine soldier. To understand how the Canis Pugnax came to be, we need to go back to the Greek Molossians, remarkable ancestors known for their brute strength and imposing presence. Imagine a dog with muscles seemingly carved from stone, robust paws that propelled it with enviable force, and a head exuding determination. These Molossians were not just guard dogs. They were protectors who guarded herds, villages, and their masters with fierce devotion. The Greeks revered them, and it wasn't long before this fame crossed the sea and reached the ears of the Romans. The Romans, known for their ability to absorb and enhance what they found valuable in conquered cultures, saw in the Molossians the perfect foundation for something greater. They envisioned a dog that could be both a protector in times of peace and a loyal warrior in times of war. Thus began the Romans' breeding mission, to cross the Molossians with other breeds to create an animal with the Greeks' strength and the discipline that the Romans demanded. The result of this ambitious project was the Canis Pugnax. It stood out not only for its physical stature, a giant reaching 60 centimeters in height and weighing up to 50 kilos, but for the presence it emanated. Anyone who saw it understood that this was no ordinary dog. Its dark, attentive eyes seemed to read the intentions of anyone who crossed its path. Its coat, dense and dark in color, made it even more intimidating under the sunlight or in the twilight shadows. And its bark, deep and powerful, a sound that sliced through the air as an unequivocal warning that this was a guardian of Rome. But the Canis Pugnax was more than muscles and appearance. It was trained from a young age with almost military discipline. Imagine a training arena where these dogs ran, jumped over obstacles, and responded to commands with a precision that rivaled the legionaries themselves. They learned to differentiate between allies and enemies by scent, by clothing, and even by the sound of their voice. This was vital, for on a battlefield where chaos reigned and cries mixed with the sound of swords, the last thing the Romans wanted was a dog attacking its own men. And don't think that the bravery of the Canis Pugnax was limited to its menacing presence. Stories were told among the legionaries, passed down from mouth to mouth on starry nights around the campfire. It was said that in a battle against enemy tribes, a Canis Pugnax fought with such determination that even after his owner fell wounded, he remained beside the body, facing anyone who approached. This kind of loyalty was something the Romans not only valued but honored. In some cases, when one of these dogs fell in combat, he was buried with honors, as if he were a soldier who had given his life for Rome. The Canis Pugnax was also a psychological weapon. Imagine the scene: a Roman legion marching with the burning sun shining on their golden helmets, the rhythmic sound of footsteps, and alongside the soldiers, a group of Canis Pugnax. From a distance, enemies didn't see just a human army. They saw dogs with fierce expressions ready to charge at any signal. Their simple growl was enough to make even the bravest warrior hesitate. This breed not only protected and fought, but became part of the Roman identity. When the legionaries set up camp after long journeys, it was the dogs who kept watch at night, listening to the slightest noises, sniffing the air for unseen dangers. And while the men rested, lulled by the sound of stories and laughter, the vigilant eyes of the Canis Pugnax ensured that the night would remain undisturbed. The Canis Pugnax, with its strength, intelligence, and loyalty, was not merely an animal. It was a symbol of Rome, an example of how even nature could be shaped by the empire's determination and spirit. Thus, this four-legged legend continued to win hearts and inspire stories that cross generations, echoing through the halls of Roman glory. Let me know in the comments if you already knew about this Roman combat dog, or if you know of any other beasts that the Romans used in battle. Imagine yourself sitting in the stands of a Roman amphitheater, the strong sun illuminating the golden sand of the arena, while thousands of spectators vibrate with excitement. The sound of clashing metal echoes in the air, and amid murmurs and anticipation, the iron gates creak open. What emerges is not just a gladiator or a roaring lion, but a group of powerful, muscular dogs with eyes shining with fierce determination. These were the legendary Canis Pugnax, and their very sight was enough to make anyone's heart race. These dogs, famous for their courage and strength, were not there merely for entertainment. Every movement was a testament to loyalty and skill. Facing beasts like bears and raging bulls, they advanced with a strategy that resembled that of well-trained soldiers. They didn't make impulsive attacks. There was intelligence behind each leap and strike, something that made the Romans proud of the creation they had in their hands. But the arenas, with all their spectacle and glory, were only the beginning of the Canis Pugnax's journey. As Rome expanded, facing challenges on distant frontiers and endless battles, Roman generals began to see in these dogs not just gladiators, but potential warriors for the battlefield. The idea of using dogs as part of military strategy wasn't entirely new, but the Romans, with their talent for improving everything they touched, took it to the next level. Imagine a Roman legion on the march, soldiers with their shields and spears, moving in unison under the heat of the sun or the cutting cold of night. Beside them, the Canis Pugnax, as disciplined as any legionary. These dogs were trained to recognize commands precisely, to know who was friend and who was foe amid the chaos and noise of combat. In moments of tension, when a spy tried to escape or a group of invaders threatened the camp, the dogs sprang into action with a speed that impressed even the most experienced soldiers. And it wasn't only in direct combat that these dogs showed their worth. When the legion set up camp in unfamiliar lands, surrounded by the unsettling silence of night, it was the Canis Pugnax that kept watch. With their keen ears and sharp sense of smell, they sensed even the slightest change in the wind, the most subtle movement in the shadows. A low growl was enough to alert the troops and, in many cases, prevent a surprise attack. Stories of the loyalty of the Canis Pugnax spread among the soldiers. It was said that in a particularly fierce battle against barbarian tribes, one of these dogs continued defending his fallen master until the very end, facing opponents with a fury that only true loyalty could inspire. This kind of devotion was revered by the Romans, who saw these dogs not merely as animals but as battle brothers. Over time, the Canis Pugnax became iconic figures, not just guardians or fighters, but part of the Roman legion's soul, marching alongside men who knew that when the fight came, they would not be alone. If you're enjoying this content and believe these stories about Rome are helping you better understand the empire that shaped the world, don't forget to like this video. This not only helps spread the true history of Rome to more people, but it also ensures YouTube shows you more videos like this. So, give it a like and strengthen this journey of historical discoveries. The sunrise in Rome brought with it the call to duty. The first rays of light gilded the tents and shields arranged throughout the camp, but in a special corner where the dust of training was already beginning to rise, the predominant sound was the firm, disciplined barking of the Canis Pugnax. These dogs, shaped by the experienced hands of the Romans, were ready for a day of training that would make them not just fierce guardians, but integral parts of the legions, true four-legged soldiers. From a young age, the training of the Canis Pugnax began with basic but essential lessons for their mission, learning to recognize and distinguish the scent of friends and foes. The legionaries knew that in battle, every second counted, and the last thing they wanted was a dog confusing an ally with an enemy. For this reason, pieces of clothing infused with the scent of soldiers were given to the dogs to smell, imprinting in their olfactory memory who belonged to the legion. And it wasn't just scent. The dogs learned to recognize voices and even specific armor. This ability became a crucial advantage when the dogs ran alongside men in shining armor, amid the deafening clamor of war. Training began early, while the morning mist still hovered over the fields and the sound of orders echoed with authority. The trainers, men hardened by experience and skilled in taming animal instinct, gave commands in loud voices. "Forward!" And the dogs moved in perfect sync, eyes fixed and bodies ready for any movement. In contrast to the barbarian dogs, who acted impulsively and chaotically, the Canis Pugnax demonstrated impressive obedience. They attacked only on command and stopped instantly at the sound of retreat. This was the difference between a strategic ally and an uncontrolled danger. For the Romans, obedience was more than a matter of discipline, it was survival. This was reflected in battle simulations, where chaos was staged so the dogs could learn to stay calm amid the turmoil. Shields were raised, wooden spears crossed the air, and soldiers simulated frantic attacks. The dogs had to react quickly, running between the soldiers' legs, dodging with agility, and baring their teeth only when the commander shouted, "Attack!" Beyond simulated battles, there were endurance exercises. The Canis Pugnax marched side by side with the legionaries, accompanying them on journeys of up to 30 kilometers a day. Under the blazing sun or the rain that soaked the ground, the dogs moved with determination, their paws kicking up dust and tracing paths that seemed endless. When the men stopped to drink water and catch their breath, the dogs remained standing, alert to any threat that might arise. The training of the Canis Pugnax wasn't limited to physical conditioning. The Romans understood that a true warrior needed more than strength, they needed connection. The dogs learned to respond to touches, subtle gestures and glances. A discreet whistle from a familiar soldier was enough for the dog to move, aware that this was a silent command. There was a camaraderie born from daily interaction. The dogs slept near the tents, ears perked even while resting, ready to spring into action at the slightest sign of danger. Stories told by legionaries after training days reinforced this loyalty. They spoke of dogs who in past battles had protected their wounded masters until the last moment, launching themselves against anyone who dared approach. These accounts were not mere legends. They were testimonies of an unwavering loyalty that inspired all who heard them. At the end of the day, as the sun set, coloring the sky in shades of orange and purple, the Canis Pugnax would lie down with the soldiers, exhausted but still vigilant. The campfires were lit, and soft conversations mingled with the crackling of wood. But in every look exchanged between man and dog, there was a profound understanding. They weren't just part of an army, they were a family, ready to protect one another until their last breath. And so, with the last light of the day, the training grounds fell silent, but the spirit of the Canis Pugnax continued to pulse, awaiting the moment when all that preparation would be tested on the battlefield, where bravery and obedience would meet to seal the empire's fate. And remember, whenever you have questions about where to find details on how Rome was formed, you can check out the digital book I left in the pinned comment, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Copies are running out, so get yours today. Imagine a Roman camp under construction. The sky, still painted in the orange hues of dawn, witnessed the continuous movement of soldiers, driving stakes into the ground and raising tents of sturdy fabric. The sounds of voices mingled with the clinking of metal and the creaking of wood being set into place. Amid this symphony of work and determination, the Canis Pugnax moved like living shadows, agile and alert. They were not there by chance. They played a vital role during one of the legion's most vulnerable moments. These dogs, known for their unwavering loyalty and sharp senses, patrolled the perimeter with impressive precision. Their firm paws stepped silently on the ground, and their piercing gaze scanned the horizon for any suspicious movement. Every rustling of leaves, every crack of a branch was analyzed with an instinct that only years of training and life alongside the soldiers could provide. For the legionaries, the sound of a low, almost imperceptible growl was like a silent alert. A soldier, sweat running down his face and hands occupied with hammers and ropes, would briefly look up upon hearing it. He knew that if the growling intensified, everyone would have to drop their tools and grab their weapons in an instant. But for now, it was simply the dog's way of communicating that they were vigilant, that no one would catch them by surprise. There was something reassuring in knowing that the Canis Pugnax was nearby. These dogs were not just animals, they were part of the legion. They had marched under the scorching sun, crossed freezing rivers, and faced stormy nights alongside the soldiers. In return, the legionaries respected them as battle brothers. During the construction and dismantling of the camp, moments when the men's attention was split between work and vigilance, the Canis Pugnax served as the first line of defense. With their sharp senses, they detected presences before any soldier could notice. A sharp, precise bark was enough to alert the troops, and in seconds, the sound of stakes and hammers turned into the noise of swords being drawn and shields raised. And don't forget to get your digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. It's very important that you get it now before copies run out. But the vigilance of these dogs wasn't limited to protecting the men during setup. When night fell and the sky filled with bright stars, the true test of their loyalty began. The campfires cast dancing shadows over the camp, and the legionaries, exhausted from their journey and the setup, gathered to share bread and stories, trying to recover their strength. Even in these moments of rest, the Canis Pugnax didn't allow themselves to fully relax. Lying down with their ears alert, their eyes tracked every movement, ready to act at the slightest sign of danger. On one of those nights, a well-known story circulated among the soldiers around the fire. They told of a dog who, in a past campaign, stayed beside his fallen master after a nighttime attack. As the battle continued and dust rose around them, the dog didn't leave, protecting the soldier's body with a bravery that echoed in the conversations of his comrades. This type of loyalty made the Canis Pugnax more than simple guardians. They were living symbols of the bond and commitment between man and animal. Breaking down the camp at dawn was a spectacle in itself. The silence before departure was heavy, interrupted only by whispered orders and the sound of tents being rolled up. The Canis Pugnax moved among the men, their presence almost ghostly, sniffing and watching, alert to any threat. There was no room for mistakes. As long as the camp was being dismantled, everyone was at risk, and the dogs knew it. Finally, when the legion was ready to move forward, the Canis Pugnax took their positions alongside the soldiers, marching with the same determination, their eyes always fixed ahead. And so day after day they fulfilled their duty, reminding everyone that Rome wasn't protected only by the strength of men, but also by the loyalty and courage of its four-legged companions. Let me know in the comments if you already knew the story of this fearsome Roman combat dog. Imagine a night in a Roman camp, where darkness covered everything like a heavy cloak, interrupted only by the flickering glow of torches and the distant murmur of soldiers exchanging whispered words. At the heart of this camp, between tents and resting piles of weapons, stood the true sentinels, the war dogs, the famous Canis Pugnax. They weren't just silent shadows, but vigilant guardians who protected the legionaries' sleep. Although Roman chronicles often focus on generals and battle strategies, there are records that discreetly reveal the vital role of these dogs. Historians like Tacitus mention that while the men rested after exhausting days of marching and fighting, the dogs kept watch, ready to react at the slightest sign of danger. And it wasn't just about guarding. If a prisoner tried to escape under the cover of darkness, the Canis Pugnax were the first to detect the scent of fear and the sound of stealthy footsteps. They would give chase, swift and determined, making it impossible for any fugitive to disappear into the night without being caught. Accounts describe how these dogs, with their firm and focused posture, patrolled around the camp, sniffing the air and listening to every crack of a branch. A simple low growl was enough for nearby legionaries to straighten up, eyes alert, knowing that something had caught the attention of their canine companions. These moments of silent alert were crucial, as a single strong bark could mean a spy was nearby or something more sinister was approaching in the shadows. The importance of war dogs is highlighted even in monuments like the column of Marcus Aurelius. The spiral sculptures along the monument narrate the emperor's campaigns, and among scenes of battles and speeches, there they were. The dogs, alongside the soldiers, steady and ready for any command. Although the art doesn't detail every action of the Canis Pugnax, their presence was a subtle reminder that Rome was defended not only by men, but also by these tireless sentinels. The dogs had a role that went beyond their combat and tracking skills. They symbolized loyalty and constant protection, qualities that deeply resonated with Roman values. When stories were told around the campfires, with flames dancing in the eyes of the legionaries and smoke rising in spirals, mentions of the Canis Pugnax were always respectful. They were spoken of not only as tools of war, but as companions who shared in exhaustion and danger, ready to fight and protect to the end. Thus, even though records are few and mentions in ancient texts are brief, the presence of war dogs in Roman culture and military life remains undeniable. They were more than guardians. They were living symbols of the bond between man and animal in times of war, ensuring that when danger approached, Rome was always prepared. Before we continue, I noticed you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. We'll always be bringing content about Rome and its curiosities. In ancient Rome, dogs had a significant role that went beyond their practical functions. They were valued for their guarding, hunting, and protective skills, but above all, for their loyalty. These animals were treated with respect and care, often receiving honors beyond what one might expect for an animal. Some dogs even had graves and headstones, proof that they were seen as an important part of families and legions. Dogs not only protected Roman homes, but were also a constant presence in the streets and military camps. Historians like Tacitus mention the use of dogs as guardians in camps, where they helped maintain security and capture fugitives. These records show that even if the dogs weren't always on the front lines of battles, their presence was essential for the organization and protection of the troops. Monuments like the column of Marcus Aurelius reinforce this idea. In this work, you can see representations of dogs beside soldiers, highlighting their importance in military campaigns and everyday life. They were more than tools for combat or defense. They were loyal companions who contributed to the safety and morale of the soldiers. In Roman society, the bond with dogs was strong. They appeared in everyday scenes, accompanied families, and participated in ceremonies, reflecting the status and position of their owners. Stories of heroic dogs who saved people or fought bravely alongside their masters were told and passed down, creating a culture of respect and admiration for these animals. The legacy of dogs in Rome shows that they were seen as protectors and valuable members of society. Their contributions were recognized not only in stories and art, but also in how they were treated in life and after death. The presence of dogs in artistic representations and historical accounts confirms that, for the Romans, they were much more than mere animals. They were essential companions and symbols of loyalty and courage. This fascinating curiosity about Rome, along with much more, can be found in the digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, available in the pinned comment for you to get your copy today. Copies are limited, so make sure to secure yours now. And so we come to the end of our journey through the incredible story of the Canis Pugnax, the loyal Roman combat dog that proved to be a true hidden force within Rome's army. These dogs were more than mere companions. They were loyal warriors, vigilant guardians, and tireless protectors who walked side by side with the soldiers, sharing in both victories and dangers. They helped make Rome a power not only through the strength of its legions, but also through the intelligence and loyalty of these incredible four-legged allies. If you enjoyed learning about this fascinating story of the Canis Pugnax and how they helped shape Roman power, don't forget to like the video. And of course, if you want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any details of the next historical adventures. See you next time.